One of the most frequently asked questions on the Wood Whisperer site is how do you deal with boards that are wider than your equipment? For instance, a board like this that we had to use for the chop of the workbench is 9 inches wide. Well, most of us don't have a joiner that can handle that width. So how do we mill it to make sure that it's nice and flat? Well, in this particular guild build, I showed guild members how to do that. And I thought it would be a great topic to bring to the free site as well. So let's dive into it, and I'll show you 2 different ways that you can tackle this. One relies a little bit more on power tools, and the other is a little bit more hand tool dependent. Let's jump right into it. Now, a big slab like this is not going to be the easiest thing to mill unless you have a little bit of a strategy. It's 9 inches wide, so even my joiner at 8 inches wide is not big enough for this. So I've got a trick on how to use the joiner to get this done. I will say, of course, if you're handy with your hand planes, you could flatten one side first, get rid of any twist, and you don't have to be perfect, you just roughly flatten it, and then you could send it through the planer to clean it up. Now you could certainly use winding sticks to identify any twist, but sometimes I find it easier to just place the slab on a known flat surface, and I think for this small section, I can be pretty confident that my benchtop slab is flat enough. If not, you could use a table saw surface or an assembly table. So when you put the surface down, the one that you're going to start planing, you can actually look at the corners and identify which ones are high and which ones are low. And that points out where the problem areas are. So for this one in particular, I'm a little bit high right here in the corner, and I'm a little high on this back corner. So these 2 points down here are the ones that are touching. Those are the high points. So what I'm going to need to do is flip the slab over, and I've already got my pencil marks showing the rough area that I want to start removing some material to help relieve some of that twist that we've got there. Now, I'm not looking for perfection here. I just want to make sure that this is mostly flat so that when I send it through the planer, we get decent registration. All right, so let's get this guy up in the bench dogs and we'll start doing a little bit of planing. I'm just going to use my number 5, set at a fairly aggressive cut, and again, focusing in these areas where I have the pencil marks. And then we're going to have to flip it over and check it again, or use the winding sticks. Right? Keep in mind, you really want to introduce a bit of a gradient here. I don't want to remove the same amount of material from this section. I want to remove most of the material from the corner and then taper my way off. And you could do that by kind of counting strokes in a way. So I'm just going to go sort of diagonal across the grain. All right, so that's 1. And as I move across, say that was 1 stroke across the entire area. So now I'm going to maybe do 2 strokes at the corner and start to taper it in a little bit. A couple more strokes at the corner. And then I start to do longer passes. All right, that should be good for now. Let's do this other one. A couple extra strokes toward the end. Let's flip it over and we can check our progress. And when all 4 corners are touching, you can be pretty confident that that side is fairly flat. Certainly you could double check with the winding sticks, but at that point you could probably just pass it through the planer. Now, I thought this would be a great opportunity to show you how you can use your joiner for a piece of wood that's actually bigger than the joiner bed would normally allow. I only have an 8-inch joiner and I have a piece that's well over 8 inches here. So let me show you the trick. The first thing you need to do is remove the guard and anything that might restrict this board from being planed over this surface. So even this support here could get in my way. So I'm just removing the whole thing. Now, because the blade is exposed, you have to use extreme caution. Of course, as you pass this over the blades, you want to use some sort of push sticks, and you want to just be very aware that those blades are spinning, and after this is done, we're going to put the blade guard right back. It's just for this one particular operation. Now, I put a bunch of marks here to show you exactly what material was removed. So with that one pass, we cleaned off this 8-inch wide section. This is the full capacity of the joiner. What's left over was just hanging over the ledge. So even after one pass, now because I used my hand plane before, this was fairly flat to begin with. So there's a nice even ridge all the way across. But for a board that was really twisted, you may need to do 2 or 3 passes and you'll have a very heavy ledge on one side and a very light ledge on the other. And that's how you know that it was twisted. So what do we do about this? Well, one thing you can do, if you have a really wide board and this becomes a lot of leftover material here, this high stuff, what you would want to do is get some double stick tape and you would take any piece of sheet good material that's at least as long as the amount of stock here that we've removed, and you push it right up against this ledge. It'll catch right on there. Stick that on, and then now you can actually flip this guy over and send it through the planer, like so. Because instead of riding on that uneven surface, this uneven strip here is off of the table. It's really now just riding on the sheet good, which is an even, consistent thickness all the way across. So then once you have a nice, clean top layer, you can simply flip this piece over and run it through the planer again to clean up the rest of this material. So that's one way you can handle it. But when there's just this little teeny tiny strip here, sometimes I just like to take that back to the bench and use a hand plane to just clean it off. I have all this reference surface. So all I need to do is continue the plane off the edge and remove this extra material. So that's what I'm going to do. So you can usually feel when you've removed all of the stock. You can also use a straight edge just to make sure there's no gaps. And that's looking pretty good, so let's head to the planer. There is nothing worse than when you get an absolutely stunning, beautiful board. It's nice and wide, but it doesn't fit on your joiner. So you have to cut it down the middle so you can joint the individual pieces and then just glue the thing back together. Wouldn't it be so much nicer if we could just keep everything whole and really preserve the wood's natural beauty and not interrupt it with a glue line? So that's why I love these techniques for dealing with the wider boards. Now, if you're interested in joining the guild and getting into this Rubo build or any of the other guild builds that we have in the archive, go to woodwhispererguild.com and check it out. Thanks for watching.